If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. My guest today is a colleague of mine, Yaritza Báez. She is a business and accountability coach who empowers women over 40 to step into entrepreneurship with purpose and focus. Originally from Puerto Rico and having lived in the UK as well, Yaritza is passionate about the freedom of location independence. She also has her own podcast called My Entrepreneurial Journey, where she shares candid insights and conversations with entrepreneurs about the realities of building a business later in life. Today, she and I discuss boundaries in the various contexts of entrepreneurship, home life, friendship, and self-care. Let's dive in. Thank you, Yaritza. I'm so happy to have you with me today. I know that you are a business and accountability coach, and I am a boundaries coach. And I'm curious what you have seen in your work with your clients in terms of boundaries and how that comes into play with staying accountable and effective in their work.
When clients come to me, we talk about the whole picture, what's going on, because obviously they are either spinning their wheels and they cannot move the needle forward. They are struggling with something, and they are also not knowing what to do first. And, so it's like they're all over the place. So one of the things that you have to see is the whole picture. What is it that you're doing? What is your daily routine, or your weekend routine if you are a weekend entrepreneur? And from there we start working, because once I have an idea of what it is that they are doing and their daily routines, then I could say, well, maybe what you need to do is start setting certain boundaries, especially because when it comes to this type, whether you are at the beginning of your career as a coach or a service provider, you're working from home. You are like, you have your home office. So you can have a lot of things going on in the background. You have to look at your family, dynamics, whether that is, you are getting distracted with that. It could be anything from your husband, your partner, wanting more time from you, or if you have children, well, your children, and even your friends, if they know that you are home, sometimes that happens. Even if your relative live close, it's like, oh, I'm going to stop by for a cup of coffee. Well, if it's within your working hours, office hours, you have to set those boundaries, and you have to do that with love. And sometimes they may not understand it, but if you can show them, explain them what's going on, what it is that you are trying to achieve, then they will understand. Because at the beginning is difficult, even whether it's also your partner, your husband is like, well, why are you spending so much time on the computer and I don't see any money coming in, and men are usually, that's the first things they're gonna tell you, and then you get like little small, you start feeling bad about it and self-conscious about it, because it's like, well, you've been doing this for 6 months, but I don't see any money coming in. That's so typical. So yeah, you have to decide how you're gonna set those boundaries and say, well, this is very personal to me. This is really what I'm wanting to do, and I would like your support. You know, so those are things that you have to sit down and talk. And the same it goes with your if you have children, then you have to explain. And as you also set those boundaries for your work hours at home, you're also going to be setting boundaries for time with your loved ones, your partner, husband, or even your children. Those are times where you're going to be fully involved with them. It's not like, let me check what, if anybody answer something or on social media. You have to be fully present for them.
So
So yeah,
boundaries with your family and boundaries with your business.
exactly. Yeah, it has to be that way in order to work. And then you start getting organized, and then you start setting your hours. How much do you really honestly know that you can put towards your business? Because if I work full time, I have to be very honest with myself, and I set boundaries even, because I have other activities that I do, not just work, but I play pickleball, I like to do Pilates, and I like to socialize. But Saturdays and Sundays, I have certain hours where I'm not going to do anything. If anybody invite me during those hours that I set for building and growing my business, no, they are non-negotiables. And so it goes with my activities. So that's something that you have to be very clear on. And the only person who can decide that is yourself. So that's how I get started with a client when they feel like they're all over the place and they think they're doing a lot, but they're not doing that much because they're scrambling all over.
So they're doing a lot, but they're not getting much done.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You're busy, but not with purpose,
Yeah.
not with a clear objective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Boundaries are really good for, I mean, in my mind, I often think of the analogy of like our physical boundaries. And boundaries aren't just the outside, they're also like the internal structures as well. So kind of like our skin and bones. And if we didn't have skin and bones, we would just like leak everywhere and just be this like useless blob. And that's pretty analogous to what you were just saying too. Like you can be busy and going all over the place, but not really very effective. Like without my skin and bones, I can't really like be an effective creature in the world. And, with them, I can actually get around and do things and contribute. And yeah.
It's interesting when you are in this journey of personal development, because even though I'm a business coach, you still have to do a lot of work in the sense and study when it comes to personal development. And in there goes also wealth consciousness and mindset. And as you develop that area, then, when you gather with friends or even coworkers, you start noticing the lack of boundaries that people set. Even with family relations, I have seen. I have a good example. I have a friend, he's a member of a board I'm also part of. And it's this person that, even though he's an older person, is an adult, even older than me, couldn't set boundaries with his mother. And it's this kind where you have the controlling mother, and it's very, I never seen anything like it. So controlling and at the same time unable to set boundaries. And one time, because we're friends and we were talking about it, and I was saying to him, you have to set boundaries, and there's going to be a resistance from your mother, because you've been allowing so many things, like not even closing his, because they live in the same home, closing his bedroom door when he's having a Zoom meeting or things like that. And I think there's certain age where, how can you allow that? You know what I mean? And to start changing that programming in her is very, very difficult. But I think you have to have certain amount of courage to do that, to say that and stay firm. And what I have seen is that hasn't happened like it should have happened. I think it failed along somewhere. It's still not there. It's like it was a moment where it's like he opens his eyes and he realized, like, oh my God, I have this age, and I'm still allowing this to happen. And I said, yes, and you have to somehow set the boundaries where, I'm having a private conversation. you can't intervene and talk in the backgrounds and talking to me and giving away your opinions. It's that extreme. You know what I mean? It's incredible. And I said, you have to do it. They're not gonna like it. She's not gonna like it. She's gonna feel hurt. She's also gonna be very manipulative about it, making him feel guilty. So those things happens, and maybe 10 years ago, before I started full on, on personal development, going into that full time, I would have never noticed that. But as you get more into it and you read more about it, you start understanding that. And there is a lot of people that, they don't accomplish or they don't get to their highest self because one of the reasons is because in my opinion, they don't set boundaries. Like I see him that he could accomplish even more, but because he never set the right boundaries with his mother, he couldn't uh, live a fuller life.
I talk about boundaries in terms of flimsy fences and spiked walls versus
Yeah.
selective gates. And flimsy fences is similar to what most people say, like no boundaries. But it's just, we all have boundaries because boundaries are just, again, it's our skin and bones. It's the limits of our resources. We just might not uphold them, but we have them, right? So people with flimsy fences, it's again that like it's the energy is leaky and that leaves you very depleted, and you can't go live your best life, be your best self, make your biggest contributions to the world if your resources are leaking out all over the place, right? And I think that it can also be, so this is kind of a side note, responding to a different part of that story is about the communication. And I think that an area where people really struggle with boundaries is confusing boundaries for needs. They're both really valid, important things. They're both things that communicating about are beneficial to the relationship, but we communicate about them in very different ways in order to have the more desired outcomes. And when we approach our boundaries as, again, sort of just our resource limits, whether that's, how much time or money or energy we have, or the things that we're interested in, or the things, that light us up. It doesn't all just have to be those, those hard and fast resources. It can also be the energizing things too. So you can be a no to anything that is not within your capacity or interest or passion. But saying no isn't about controlling the other person's behavior. It's about what you're going to do for you. And so, that might look like one of my common go-to examples is when I receive harsh criticism, I feel shame. And so to care for myself in those instances, I'll step away from the conversation. And so communicating about it at that point is just sharing a gift of information about cause and effect and telling someone what you're going to be doing. And then it's on you to do that, to follow through and do it. So boundaries are actually really empowering because they don't require anything from anyone else. However, when you do need something from someone else, trying to tell someone what they can or can't do is almost always going to result in some conflict. And so it's much more productive to go into it with a sort of collaborative communication approach and say, hey, here are my needs. And here are some ways that you can help me meet those needs. What are your needs? How can we get creative and collaborate on strategies where both of our needs can get met? And then that way both people
Absolutely.
are involved in the discussion instead of one person trying to control the other person's behavior or demanding certain behaviors.
Yeah. Sometimes, for example, with my husband, I will say to him, I need this a certain amount of time so I can be totally focused with my business. But then you have to absolutely, you have to ask the other person what it is that they need from you, or, because if, especially, if you in a couples, you have to, it's a give and take. So there has to be a balance, there has to be a compromise when it comes to that. And I think even with friendship is like that,
Absolutely.
with friend, I think, I have friends that we've been friends for like 40 years, and in those all those years we have learned to set our own boundaries without hurting each other. We just understand what the other person needs and what do I need. So we know quite well what the other person needs. Um, and sometimes if they don't get it, you have to be like, for example, right now I have a friend where we are both um living a single life because I separated, but I'm not in the same season where she is right now. And so I have to put certain boundaries because she's wanting to lead her life in a certain way where I'm not there yet. It's not the same. And so you have to set that boundary, but without hurting her feelings. It's just more of an understanding. I understand her needs, and I will make myself clear about my own needs. And for me, my priority right now is building and growing my business and certain activities.
Mhm.
And so that, I think that's a way for us to set our boundaries, but they are not like drawing the line so harshly that it's like, there's the line, this is me, and that's gonna be, and that's her. No, it has to flow. And another
Yeah.
thing that you were mentioning earlier is like, if you don't set boundaries, you leak, you deplete. And I think for an introvert, like I'm an introvert, so for me, I try to be very watchful of my energy because I need that alone time. It's essential for me to function. And so I don't know, I guess unconsciously I set those boundaries so I cannot leak or get depleted. And when I do, I like, okay, I have to get back to my own, set again those boundaries, and so I protect my energy, because as an introvert we need that alone time where the socialize has to get, behind the seat.
It's a similar, sort of resource. Like it's all about self-care. Like, so we have to prioritize eating well, getting enough sleep, and for introverts, getting enough alone time, and for extroverts, getting enough social time. And it's all about, managing those resources and being responsible for our own self-care. And when you're talking about friendships as well, you kind of gave the example of, that hard line. That's what I would call the spiked wall. So again, we've got like the flimsy fences or the spiked walls, and something that's more smooth, I call selective gates. And that's where we draw our boundaries around behaviors instead of people. And one of my favorite tools for, kindly, lovingly communicating a boundary is following a no with a yes. And that way you can still be in connection with them. And, you can say, hey, I'm not available or interested in going out with you tonight, but I would love to catch up over lunch on Tuesday or something, like I still want to spend time with you. I just don't want to do that thing with you or at that time or in that way.
Yeah, I think that's the way it should be,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to friends, because, for me, my friends are, I don't have a lot of friends, and I'm very selective about friends. And because of living in different places, it's not as easy to have a long time friends or make friends. And so the few that I have, um that no, yes, is such an important thing. So
Hmm.
we tend to practice that. Like, we know what we like, For example, I have this friend that she likes to go dancing, but that's not my thing. So, but sometimes she's like she was mentioning, but I go to things that you and another friend of ours go to, like art exhibitions and the theater and things like that. And I go along with you guys. So I would like you to come with me at least, one time, once in a while. And I'll say, okay, let's do that.
Compromise.
But yeah, I have to compromise because she
Yeah.
have done that for me and in our other friends. So yeah, you have to do those things sometimes, but at least we have an understanding and we know each other's boundaries. And so there's always going to be that no and the yes
hmm
afterwards. Yeah,
hmm
that follows.
I think it's interesting people talk about compromise in relationships of any kind. And some people are in the camp of like, never compromise. And some people are in the camp of like, of course you have to compromise. I think it's important to clarify what you're compromising about. And from nonviolent communication, um, the author of that book, Marshall Rosenberg, he distinguishes between needs and strategies. And he says that all human behavior is strategies for getting our needs met. And a lot of people sort of conflate the two. So, like, an example is if you don't bring me a dozen roses every Friday, then you don't even love me. And it's like, okay, love is a need. A dozen roses are a strategy for feeling loved, but there are different things that we can do. There are different ways to feel loved. And so perhaps, you not really wanting to go dancing is because you need or value something more tranquil. But you also value connection and friendship and relationships. And so you can compromise by going dancing occasionally and still meet your need for tranquility overall in your life and maintain your need and value of friendship and connection.
Yes. And you are talking about the compromise is when we are dealing, with other people, whether it's friend, your partner, family. But I think we also have to compromise with our own selves,
Absolutely.
especially um, when you're starting a business, when you are an entrepreneur, solopreneur. You have to compromise with yourself because we can be so hard with
Mm-hmm.
with us, with ourselves. Just we put sometimes social height standards on ourselves that we're the first one who not allow ourselves to compromise with us. So we want to accomplish this and that, and then it's like if you don't, then you get disillusioned, and you are wanting to give up, or in my case, for example, I have my business. I have other activities that I have and responsibilities that I have to do. And sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I don't have time for absolutely nothing. It's like, when do I have downtime, for just me and read and then when I see that if I feel that my business is not moving forward, I feel that I'm not moving the needle forward, then it's like, well, you have to compromise because if you are working 35 hours a week and then you are having to deal with other responsibilities that you have that probably take another 10 hours during the week, don't be so hard on yourself, just compromise and accept that, okay, I work full time. I'm a weekend entrepreneur, but I also have these activities. So I need to accept that the rhythm or the speed in which I'm going to be growing is going to be slower than another person who's working full time on their business because you have the time. So you have to compromise and accept that that's your reality and don't feel bad about it. Don't get angry about it. That's just how it is. And I work with my coach with that this week because I was struggling with that. It's like I'm feeling bad. I'm feeling like I don't know if I'm gonna reach my goals and achieve what I actually want because I have all this going on. And one of the things she said to me is like, well, keep in mind, keep present what you actually can put into your business, how many hours and the effort that you can put in. If it's 2 hours, 4 hours a week, then that's it. Just that's your compromise. That's what you are settling for. So, yeah, that's another way to see compromising, not just with other people, but with yourself.
Hmm. And similarly, I talk about boundaries, like not just having boundaries with others, but having boundaries with ourselves too. And in either case, really, it involves just realistically acknowledging the limits of our resources. And I know, I think that a lot of people, for various reasons, have this story that they're supposed to be like infinitely abundant, and that any perception of limits on themselves is somehow going to just like hold them back. And, there's a validity to that, but there's also like a balance that needs to be struck there because, first of all, I think it's really important to acknowledge the difference between abundance and scarcity mindsets versus actual abundance and scarcity in the world. And you can have an abundance mindset and acknowledge the like real world limitations on the fact that you have 24 hours in a day. You only have so much energy to give. And what really helped me was recognizing that sometimes scarcity is what makes things really valuable, like diamonds and gold. And then that helped me like kind of step into a position of honor, seeing myself as a noble steward of things like my time, energy, and attention. And so it's my solemn duty, and responsibility to manage my resources in a way that supports me in being the most effective in the world. I don't mean like the most effective person in the world, but like to show up in the world effectively. And I think, all of that, having boundaries with ourselves, compromising with ourselves, all really comes down to admitting with compassion and grace that we have limits. And I think it's such a fascinating paradox that respecting our limits is actually what opens our lives up.
Yes, I totally agree. But I think also that happens when we're not happy or content with how much we accomplish because we also see a lot of social media and we are influenced by that. Even when we are aware of it, we are. And then you see all these like on Instagram, these successful people and they have it all together. Everything is like ideal and perfect and brilliant and they manage to do everything and that's what you see, but you don't have the behind the scenes. You don't know how long it took for to them to get there. You don't know how many, that if they have assistants, what if they have a team of people helping them. You don't know that. And so sometimes we get in our head this image of these people on social media that it is we idealize that and that is like yes, that's what I want to achieve, but you have to compromise also and to be realistic about it. And so that's one of the reasons I think we get upset and frustrated.
Absolutely. I had a similar realization about a year or two ago that I was feeling so frustrated and defeated in my own solopreneur journey that like, why isn't success coming as easily to me as it seems to be coming to others? And what was interesting is on the occasions that I actually got to communicate with some of the people who seemed to be killing it, or who were killing it, I should say, who seemed to be killing it all on their own because they are the only ones that you see in the equation, I came to find consistently every time they either had a partner helping with finances, or they had like a trust fund, or they had a team, doing a lot of the work behind them. Um, and it gave me a lot of grace for my solopreneur journey, being like, oh, I am doing a lot more work. Of course, it's going to be a little bit harder and take a little bit longer. And the other thing too is like you don't know how long it took them to get to where they are when you're seeing them. And like maybe they had their own solopreneur phase too that was long and arduous. And now you see them on the other side of it. It's a funny thing, you know, there's a lot of talk about comparison also and like the dangers of comparison. But something I've been noticing recently is like it's kind of a I don't know the proper term. I want to say catch 22 because there's a version of comparison that can also be inspiring. Like we look to other people to be like, oh, they did it. I can do it too. And so it's like there's, you know, we talk about the shadow side of comparison, but there's also that light side of comparison, which I don't know. I think it's just I don't know that I would throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, because I don't think you can have one without the other. I think maybe just bringing awareness to it is important.
Yeah, I think it's how you are feeling at that moment in time emotionally, because there are times where you hear those stories, you see those stories, and I'm like, why not me? And you know, why haven't have the same growth and I have been doing it for this long and nothing happens, you know? What is wrong with me? That will
Yeah.
be, you know, that's what I start to question. But then
Hmm.
there are so many stories that I have heard where I'm like, if it wasn't because I hear those stories of success, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So I need to hear those
Exactly.
also. You
Right.
cannot hear all the like the struggle behind it. That's good because it keep you on your feet and keep you you know, it's a reality check.
Yeah.
But you also need to hear those stories because those are the ones that are also gonna motivate you and encourage you to continue your journey even when the going gets hard. So
Hmm.
yes, you need the two. You just have to keep the balance there within those.
Exactly. And I think that also, I don't want to put it all on them, but for anyone in a position of, you know, like a spotlight position, I think that there is an opportunity to contribute to the betterment of the world by being a little bit more transparent about the behind the scenes in a balanced way. Like, here are the successes I've had, and here are some of the trials I had to overcome to get there, just so that it's a more realistic form of encouragement, you know, so that you feel encouraged as you're struggling and as you're succeeding.
Yeah, I think there is a slight change in the industry towards that.
Hmm.
Because I will say a few years ago, every was like you make 10K in 3 months or in a month, and all these stories and the luxury things. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but how much did it took you to get there?
Hmm.
Do, do you start offering whatever it is that you are offering so people can get there too? You know, that you actually cracked the egg and you were able to succeed. How what what were your struggles?
Right.
And at the beginning, everybody, and I think that's why also, especially in the coaching industry, people started to get angry and talk bad about coaches and all of that because they saw that and then they tried to do things that it didn't give those results that they were promised. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I try to be, I don't want to be doom and gloom because nobody
Right.
wants to hear that. But I want to be as transparent as I can. And I like
Hmm.
to be because I want to be real. It's like, yes, all these things can happen. It is possible. But in order for that to take place, there's going to be a lot of like not so much fun stuff too. You know, sacrifice and long hours and compromise and set
Hmm.
boundaries also. You have to
Hmm.
set boundaries, you got to compromise. Those are essential things that you need in order to set, you know, a goal, a project and achieve something,
Hmm.
whether it's personal or business or career wise.
Absolutely. And this is stuff that you help your clients with.
Yeah, I like to get in those conversations so they can get, I wouldn't say the bigger picture, but the whole picture.
Hmm.
the
A
good, the bad,
holistic
and the
view.
yeah. You have
Hmm.
to see the whole thing
Yeah.
so you understand, and it prepares you
Hmm.
to take on that journey.
Hmm.
And if you are already on that journey, then you can, and you were like getting frustrated because nothing is happening, then it's like, well, maybe it's because you haven't looked at this from this side,
Perspective,
this
man.
perspective.
Yeah. Perspective's powerful. So if any of my listeners wanted to learn more about you and your work, where might they go?
They can visit my website, yaritzabaez.com. Also, I have my podcast, My Entrepreneurial Journey with Yaritza Báez.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll make sure that those links are available in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for joining me today, Yaritza. I really appreciated our discussion.
Thank you, Mariya, for having me.
And thank you for joining us. You know, the holidays are creeping up on us slowly but surely. And for many of us, that means a crushing weight of expectations and obligations that can pile up on us. So if that's you and your typical holidays, I invite you to consider starting to lay the foundations now so that you have them before you need them. You can reach out to work with me. ExploreLovingBoundaries.com will get you a link directly to my calendar, and we can have a free conversation to really get you set up for a more peaceful holiday season. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and feel free to spread the love and share this podcast with someone else you think might enjoy it. Wherever you're at on your journey, I send you love and courage. Namaste.